Hi everyone, and welcome to the next section of the life of this recipe that I've been making here. So this has been sat in the fermenting fridge for the last 3 weeks. So it's been fermented at 19 degrees as I set the temperature controller. So it's had 3 weeks in total, so that's pretty much 2 weeks fermenting, including the diacetyl rest. And then it's had a week, 7 days of being dry hopped. So I've dry hopped it with some Chinook and some Simcoe and some Mosaic to really give this sort of West Coast Imperial Porter a bit of a kind of hoppy punch at the end, just to ride over the top of the roastiness that I'm hoping we're going to get out in the recipe for this. So I've tested the final gravity. And final gravity's come out a little bit lower than actually Beersmith was telling me, so it's come out at 1010. So, and I was actually slightly high on the numbers looking back at my records. So it looks like this is going to finish up at about 6.2. So it's going to be a bit of a tasty one, but that's kind of pretty much what I was aiming for. So I'm not sort of too disappointed. I've had a bit of a cheeky little taste, and it's going to be a good one, I think, but only time will tell once it's had a bit of bottle conditioning. So this is pretty much ready to be bottled now. So what I thought I'd do is the next kind of series to this recipe life is just take you through some bottling. We'll do some sterilising, actually do some proper bottle racking, and some yeast harvesting and stuff as well, and a few other bits and pieces along the way. So yeah, looking forward to getting this bad boy porter in. Let's get on with it. So, right, here we are. Start sterilising. This is probably the least enjoyable job probably out of it all, but you know, it's a means to an end, isn't it? So, first thing I do when I'm bottling, actually there's a few key, well there's probably one really key thing that I like to use when I'm bottling, particularly when I sterilise. I use this bit of shameless product placement, the Star Sand there. This is great stuff. We sterilise everything. We've seen some of my other videos. This is what I sterilise my fermenters with before the wort goes in. The other key thing I have is a really good pair of rubber gloves. Really good thick pair of rubber gloves. This will become evident in what I'm about to do, but also that Star Sand it's not nasty, but if you've got kind of a touch of eczema and a bit of dry skin like me, that Star Sand just kills your hands, so the next day you really pay for it, so a good pair of gloves. So what I like to do is I like to run a hot tap, make sure your hot water's on. It's the evening here, so the kids are in bed and the tank's had a good old chance to fill up. So while I'm running some hot water, what I do is, those of you that know how to use this, I put around about 30ml, and I like it nice and strong, so we're sterilising bottles, and the beer could be in the bottle for like months, so you want to make sure it's good. So I measure out around about 30ml of Star Sand and put it in the sink, in the bowl, like that. Cap back on, and this is now running proper hot. I now fill that bowl probably half to 3/4 full with the hottest water you've got in your tank. Now the next bit, obviously you'll notice that we're sterilising bottles, is a bottle tray. So this is the bottle tray I use, and it's been quite good. I mean, it's pretty standard. Everyone's got these pretty much. We're using all segments of the day, so we're doing a full kind of 20 litre batch, sort of 19, so we're going to need a good 38 bottles, 38 500ml bottles, but actually I'll mix that up a bit and I'll show you that in a sec. So when I come to, this is the base, so it's quite good, really, quite a good simple idea. Oh, hang on a minute, the bowl's filling up. So you'll notice when you first fill it up, you don't get a huge amount of bubbles. Now with Star Sand, bubbles are your friend, but you'll see as we go, the bubbles really take over. So this is a base that all these bits slot into, a little bit down there to catch the drips, and as I said before, with Star Sand, the bubbles are your friend. That's where the real sterilising goes on. The other thing actually that a lot of people seem to be frightened of is star sand being left in the bottles before you fill it with beer. But actually, I find as long as I let my bottles kind of stand for 30 minutes just to let them drip, you don't taste a thing, and it's absolutely fine. Actually, having some bubbles in there is actually a good thing. So, you know, for those of you out there, don't worry about it. But, this is pretty straightforward how this is assembled. I always like to try and make sure I stagger these, so when I do it, you can see I stagger them like that. So I'm talking beyond that. See, I stagger them like that, so when the bottles go in, they interleave a lot better, and you get a kind of better bottle density. So that then goes on the grain board here, like this. Job done. So the next stage is for me to get the bottles out. So we'll just have a look at the box of bottles I've got. So from a bottle point of view, this is what I tend to do. So down here I've got a brand new box of 500ml bog standard amber bottles, bought off eBay. I think I paid, for those of you in the UK, I think I paid like 24 quid or something like that. I think a little bit less for 50 bottles, so there's 25 in a box, so you get sort of 2 consignments. But what I've found I tend to do when I'm bottling up a batch is you always have that kind of, what's the beer like, how's it going, check it on conditioning, see how the carbonation's doing. So what I tend to do is, as well as doing some normal 500ml bottles, I tend to save a selection of 330ml bottles. And as you say, I've got a wide range here. Another particular favourite of mine, and those of you actually that have seen some of my other videos, you'll see that actually I make a version of this myself. I'm quite fond of it. But you know, just a selection here. How many have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Just the 330s, because it's a really good way to sort of share a little trial round, test them out, and just see how the beers are doing. So these are bottles I'm going to be using. Underneath is just a boatload of just these standard 500ml bottles. Brilliant. Right, let's get the gloves on, let's get into it. Okie dokie everyone, right, here we are. So it's gloves on time. These are quite thick, heavy duty ones as well, and the reason for getting some good thick, heavy duty ones is that water in there is red hot. So unless you're a chef that can put up with sticking your hands in these sort of temperatures on a regular basis, I wouldn't recommend it. And actually, again, it's the whole heat thing. Having some red hot water when you're using this sort of stirring, it's got to be a good thing. So let's do a few bottles and just show you what I do. So process I tend to follow is these two, it's just standard. Sink them in, and if you fill your bowl enough, hear them guggling away, so they're just filling themselves up until they stop to guggle. Bloop, bloop, bloop. And then turn them upside down, and just give them a shake like that. Make sure you get a good amount of bubbles that are generated inside. See that, and all those bubbles in there. Stick them on the tree. And repeat. And bubbling away. See, I can feel how hot that water is even through these gloves. So it's you know, the water's really starting to bubble up already. Let's give that a good old shake. Because, as I said before, the bubbles are your friend. You know, these bottles are, you know, half full now with bubbles, slowly emptying out. Stick them on there, and then we just repeat from there. I'm not going to show you the rest of me doing the rest of another 38s. I think you'll die of boredom. So I'll see you back shortly. That's 2. So it is is a bit of a slow, laborious process, but you get there in the end. Sticks musical, just kind of, you know, pop away to it, not too bad. So these are the last two 330s to go on. And you'll see I've pretty much filled the whole tree up. And based on the fact that there's 10 per ring, I've probably got more bottles here than I'm going to need. But I kind of go on the basis that it's not such a bad thing. Better to have too many bottles than not enough. And that's happened. You know, and you're down to the last dregs of what you're bottling, and you just haven't got enough bottles to put it into. So yeah, more is better than less. So the last two things I like to do before I go and have a beer and let these dry out is I get my racking cane ready. What I like to do after I do a bottle or a transfer from primary into secondary is I like to fill my racking tube up with Star San liquid, diluted, and I just join it back together there. And I find that's a really good way of just leaving it, because obviously it might go 3 weeks until I use it again. So I do that. So if I just pop this apart, with these gloves on, it makes it life a little bit more tricky. I've had a bit of a dicky arm as well. I'm falling apart. Those of you that know, I've had a bad back in recent months, and then I've gone from having a bad back to having tennis elbow of all things. Bloody hate tennis. Where's that come from? Anyway, so let's just drain all this stuff out. So the idea is we need to sterilise this. The other bit of kit, the two important bits of kit that go with this, is probably one of the best investments I've made, is a bottling cane. This thing here, it's got a little kind of like stopper valve on the bottom. The idea is that at the end of the pipe of this, in there, and then you literally just get your bottle, hold your bottle, just plonk it in, press this on the bottom, and it fills up. Means you don't get any splashing, you don't get any oxygen uptake when you're filling the bottles rather than having a tap. And there's another neat little trick I developed to get away from needing to do the old siphon sucking thing and introducing germs that way, or actually, if I'm honest, the need for actually buying one of those auto siphon things which you've probably seen on the internet, which I don't really quite get. So there's that. The other thing is the bottom bit, the anti-sediment trap that goes on the end of our bottling bits of kit. But the little addition I do, which I found is good, and interestingly with this porter, with the London 3 ale yeast that I use, I find it flock collects so well. I don't need to transfer in a secondary. Normally I'll transfer out of the primary fermentation vessel into a secondary vessel and keep it cool for a couple of days, just to let all the rest of the trouble just drop out of solution. But I find with this, when I'm doing porters and I specifically use this yeast, I don't generally need to. All I need to do, this is my little addition, little tip, is, and if you could see that there, see that? Focus up. Basically I put a little bit of sponge into the end, and that acts as just a little filter, so it just stops, within reason, a decent amount of sort of trub, hop debris, whatever you like, because as much as they say this is a sediment trap, it doesn't really work. So actually I found putting that in makes a big difference actually. So yeah, so I have that in there. So I need to get all this sterilised. So what I do generally is I attach my filter to the end. I drop things on the floor in the process, and then I chuck it in the sink. Now what I want to do is, because this end is going to be going into the beer, I need to make sure that this bit gets as much, oh excuse me, it gets as much of the Star San on as possible, as well as the bottling cane bit. So what I tend to do, and this will become clear when we get into bottling and why I do this funny little thing, it takes a little bit of art because this stuff doesn't taste very good, but is to begin with I get the bottling cane, put it into the bowl, and I push it down until the bottom clicks as if I'm filling a bottle up, and then I suck and fill the cane up with Star San. A little bit of Star San there, but there we go. So that's now pretty much full Star San. Now, put that to one side. What I also then do is I then fill this up with Star San as well. So I then put it in there and suck. put your finger over the end and try and keep it as low as possible, and then attach the two together how you're going to use them when you're bottling. So because this end's closed and the other end is lower, you've essentially kept the loop filled up with star sand and then cover it in bubbles. As remember I said earlier, bubbles are your friend. And I let that soak while the bottles are dripping. I find that's generally enough. Obviously, a bit of the old mouth cycling again, but of course you're doing it with sterile liquid rather than your beer. So any germs that I've got, generally the star sand clean. Doesn't taste very nice though. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. One final thing to do, caps. Now I did read something the other day on the homebrew forum. Someone was asking what they do about sterilising their caps, do they, don't they, that kind of thing. This is what I do. Again, you know, this is what I've kind of worked out differently. Those of you in the UK, Wilco, don't go to your homebrew shop, well, do go to your homebrew shop, but Wilco caps, really good. They're like £1 for 50 or something. That's like 50p cheaper, and hey, you know, in this day and age 50p can make a real difference when you're bottling a lot. So I buy from Wilco, I've got a couple of leftovers. So what I do is I fill a mug up with more than enough caps I'm going to need, because again, there's nothing worse than running out of caps. Always make sure you've got enough caps and all the other bits and pieces you'll need before you start bottling, because you just really don't want to be there when you've not got enough of something you're going to need and you're halfway through it. Not really, well, when you're bottling it 9:30 at night like me, not really a lot you can do about it. So let's take that off there. Fill that mug up with caps, because you can always take them back out and put them back in the bag. Got a mug full of caps. I'll then stick it into my sink, which is still full of star sand liquid, and I let those soak on the side as well, like a really bad tasting cup of tea. And then make sure everything's covered in bubbles and stuff again, and then we're pretty much done. So it's time for a beer, chill out for half an hour, and then yeah, then we'll get into some bottling. Cool, okay, so it's been about half an hour, enough time for a beer, and so the racking cane and stuff's been sterilising, bottles are drip dried. Yeah, let's get the racking cane and tube onto the fermenter. Probably what I'm going to do is, what I tend to do is I'll move the first kind of load of bottles off of here, put them, fermenter's actually just behind you there, put them on the side there so they're ready to go. I'll probably move the camera over so we've got a slightly different angle, and yeah, we'll get into it. Good stuff.